Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Led by Life. We're your hosts. I'm Rafaela, and this is Hannah. We are two manifestors in human design who found each other through a workshop. And with our energies coming together, we created Led by Life. So, welcome. We're happy to have you. It's been a hot minute, and I feel like I say that every time recently because we've been going larger gaps in between recording, and I just know, and I know you know that that's us honoring our process and where we're at, which I'm starting to just like fully accept. Like there's no more like feeling bad if we can't do it or if it has to be postponed or if we're just not in the mood or like whatever. Um fully in full acceptance of that now.
I completely agree. I was literally thinking that before you said it. I feel like we're getting more and more aligned with our energy. And I think that that really relates to this 40th gene key. And yeah, it means that there's, more honoring of the rest cycles or more honoring of the authority of when we feel like we do and don't want to record and accepting that that's just the way that we are. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
I was sharing with Hannah before we started that, as you can tell, there's been a change in my voice. I'm really curious to see how this is going to sound when it's played back. Um, but nonetheless, I've been sharing that I've been, kind of going through a, I don't know what you want to call it, like a flare, an episode. I've allergy season, whatever it is. And you mentioned that you feel like what I'm going through relates a lot to this 40th gene key. So we're in the 40th gene key, which is the shadow of exhaustion. Yes. The gift of resolve and the city of divine will. So I want to hear what your thoughts are after I shared with you, like, how I'm physically feeling and how it relates.
Mm. I think the part that you shared about how you're a giver and you give away so much of your energy, that really kind of resonated with the shadow expression. Is it the repressive nature, like denial of your own needs?
Yes.
Like, I can't speak on your behalf, but I don't have this one defined in my chart. I know you do, so you might perhaps resonate a bit more with some of the themes. But I just want to say that I loved this reading this one. I think I've read it about 4 times now because we had planned to record for so long. It's been like a month or 6 weeks maybe in the making. And that's okay. Like this work is meant to be contemplated. It's not meant to be rushed through. And sometimes there's been ones where we do feel like we can just flow with it and it comes through easily. And there's others that we really need to sit with. And perhaps there's something deeper going on here for both of us in learning about these different energetics. And I definitely feel like I've been sitting a lot with this idea of Wu Wei that he even mentions in the chapter. I've been kind of exploring it myself recently. But I just want to say, like, I love the themes that he talks about. So I kind of wrote some notes, like that he talks about isolation and loneliness. He talks about denial. And there's also this kind of theme of digestion and like energy and processing energy and having energy like eating away. And I really felt like this gene key in particular, I was able to see the poetic side of Richard Rudd and how well he writes and like the way that he uses words to kind of tell this story. And there's a few things, and I can read, little snippets that I've highlighted as we go. But there was a few sections that I was just like, wow, like he really is pulling on all these different themes and weaving them together and in such a poetic way. So I really appreciated that. But yeah, I think like for me, the standout thing from this chapter, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, is just like this idea of Wu Wei aligning our energy with the universal flow and like almost not, it doesn't, it doesn't feel like effort when it's aligned, and you can still exert energy and work hard, but it's like I almost see it as like a stream of universal, the flow of energy is like a stream, and it's like you're just stepping into the stream and letting yourself like be taken
Hmm.
by that energy rather than like resisting the flow, pushing against the flow and forcing it, which leads to burnout, exhaustion,
Hmm.
and all those kind of shadow sides. So yeah, I've just shared like my kind of overall thoughts and reflections from the chapter. What about you? What do you think?
Well, as so I know that like when we get together and you start speaking, what happens for me is that I just get like downloads like capsules of like images and how it's all layered. And it's sort of like you sort of beautifully summarize sometimes my experience when I have it defined because I know I have the live experience of what you're talking about. And not that you don't, right? But just how this has shown up for me, um, like so recently, like literally
Mm.
in the last days, hours. Um, oh, where do I want to start? Hmm. So the idea of like forcing rather than energy, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, force versus flow,
Force versus
essentially.
flow. Yes.
Yeah.
And, having the not only like the heart center defined, like the heart center, the ego center, the will center, whatever you want to call it, and then also having the 40th gate, I do feel this deep sense of like willpower to get things done or
Mm.
to do something. And when I'm getting better at noticing like when it's forced and when it's flow. So I kind of experimented a little bit with utilizing like all of these different components of my human design to get some work done. Um, and so I used my environment, which is kitchens, along with my digestion, which is high sound. And there was one other part that I'm kind of missing right now. But I noticed that when I use those, like completing a task just feels like effortless. I went to this coffee shop. It's like a cafe, actually. It's a cafe. The music was like great. I love the music they were playing there. I had food at the same time. And those are like components of like high sound. Like the sounds have to be appealing to me, and like listening to music is great. And then just being in a creative space is really good, is supportive of like having that kitchen's environment. And I sat down and I just was like, my fingers were just flowing. And I was just like looking and typing at the same time, just getting all of this done. And I noticed when it started to be like running off, like my energy was like cutting off, like it was time to like stop, which was fine.
Mm.
It was coming close to the end anyway. But then like another actual lived experience is there's a task that I've had to complete for work, and I have like, and it's interesting because this gene key is very much around like work as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, and so there's this task that I needed to complete. And rather than going throughout my days telling myself, I need to get that done, I need to get that done, I need to get that done, and like this goes for laundry too. I need to do the laundry, I need to do rather than telling myself that these are things that I need to get done or to do, I trust that my energy, when it's correct, like I'll be given the right amount of energy to get it done at the time that it needs to get done. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what happened before we were on our call. I was like, okay, I know that I can do this task now, and I will get it done before, our recording today, our meeting. And I did. And again, like I was just, music was on. I was like, the way my apartment is set up, like I'm sort of in the kitchen, sort of in the living room. So the whole place sort of feels like a creative space for me. Um, and it just flowed. Yeah. And it's done. I'm done.
Like, what I want to say to that is like how often have we felt like we have to force things
Yeah.
in the past, like, and I still find myself doing that, and it's like, yes, there's going to be things that maybe I don't necessarily want to do and but that I need to do, but like, can I have this relationship with myself, with my energy, with the universe, with the flow of energy? Like, it will happen in the right time, it will get done, and like letting go of the mental narrative, like, oh, but how am I going to do this? How am I going to get all done? When? Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Something else you mentioned in like some of your takeaways and what you got was the part where he speaks about this energy also having a layer of like boundaries with
Yeah.
the energy that you exchange with people, right? And so
Mm.
like in the gate, it's called the Gate of Aloneness. Yeah,
Yeah.
of Aloneness in human design. And with that gate, it's a tribal gate. So here we're very much in our tribe, in our community, and there's this exchange where the individual with the 40th gate will be able to utilize its energy to um, work to gain the resources, and then it is then received with its community with whatever resources the community has to give back, right? I saw this very clear in my last relationship at times. I think I might have talked about it on here, but I say that because this exchange of energy and boundaries and knowing when to say no, that's another part that he talked about is knowing when to say no. And
Yeah.
and with that I can say, so I work as a mental health clinician. I'm a licensed therapist. And right now I've been working in a facility that I've never worked in. The acuity there is higher, the crisis there is higher. And the practice of knowing like when am I efforting mentally to either like conceptualize or understand or kind of be in session or provide support um is a little different than what I'm used to. So I've noticed like I've had to like sort of slow down, step back, take pauses. um and so sometimes it's not even an external no, right? Like this no doesn't mean that I have to tell you no. Sometimes a no for me is like telling myself no. And I don't think we talk about that often, right? Like I'm very quick to give people my energy. Clearly, probably why Hannah said that I'm like voice and sinus and what all this stuff is happening, cough or whatever. But I've been practicing with when I hear that my body says I'm not in a position to talk, like, don't pick up the phone.
Mm.
But, it happened last night. I was sharing with you kind of like what happened at this sound bowl healing that I went to and needing to leave. And, my really good friend called me afterward, and I had a feeling that she would. And I told myself, like, I'm not in a position to talk. I can't. And I did. And there are times and parts of me that like will just answer the phone every time.
Mm.
So this is a boundary that like I feel I'll force my energy. I'll force to just do it even if, I'm not in the position to be listening or hearing or talking or speaking or anything like that.
Like people pleasing, you know, it's like this. Yeah, like, and I feel like there's so much, yeah, there's so much to unpack, but it like one thing, you know, the energetic boundaries are
Yeah.
so important. I think also as manifestors, like for us, it's super important to be like aware of our energy and like what we're letting in. And like, I know personally for me, with so much openness in my chart, like I'm becoming more and more aware of like how sensitive I can be, how I can take on other people's emotions, fears, stress, like worries, all of these things. Um, I had a moment the other day where I got really angry and I channeled that anger into like, first of all, I sat with it and I was like, what is this trying to teach me? And I realized that it was deep, deep, deep down. It was like a sadness. It was like this feeling of sadness, but it was also really tied to exhaustion and feeling really tired. And like how this kind of relates to this conversation is that I feel like I've hit this quota where I'm just so tired of giving my energy away.
Mm,
And like I'm so tired of investing energy into relationships that feel one-sided. I mean, I'm tired of like not standing up for myself. I'm tired of not of having like people project stuff onto me constantly. Like I live in this double projection field as a 2-5. And I'm just like fed up. And it was interesting because I almost set like through that experience, I like set these energetic boundaries with myself. And
mhm,
I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to keep like giving my power away, giving my energy away. And then I kind of channeled this, as I tend to do, into like a creative expression of writing. And like I shared this on my Instagram. Um, but I think where I was going with this is like just this notion of exhaustion.
mm,
And like when we're giving away so much of our energy, it's like, yeah, it's taking away from our own life force energy. And sometimes saying no, actually often saying no to the wrong things. I think he even says this, like, is saying yes to the right things.
yeah.
In other words, I don't know exactly how he said it, but and here I've got highlighted as well. I think it relates to what you were saying. Like everything about this 40th gene key is about having boundaries, and in order to create boundaries, you have to be able to deny other people access to your energy. You have to be able to say no. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And if you've had like this feeling of anger come up for you as well, like the anger is so beautiful because it's the sign of the not self. And I've really had to kind of sit with this a lot, like acceptance around the fact that anger comes up for me a fair bit, because it is like how my energy works and how it shows me like this is something's not working here,
Mm-hmm.
something's out of alignment. But then like through the channeling of that and the sitting with that anger, there's like peace on the other side. So yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on that.
Gosh, it just, and like another example just came to me as well. First on the exhaustion piece, I'm also not surprised that my body is sort of had this physical representation of exhaustion, right? Um, it's exhausting to cough consistently and like it's like it's a coughing attack and that exhausts me and sometimes it's exhausting to like exert my voice more than necessary because of like the state that it's in right now. And why I said I'm not surprised is because the first not even the first couple months of the year, like, well, more or less. There's been a lot of change in my life. Clearly, as I've shared here, I've moved, I'm in a new position, I'm in a new relationship status, like, processing a lot of change. And then in the first 2.5 months of the year, I was needing to travel for work, which is new for me, and going and going and going. And at the very end of the travel, I came home, and what happens? This,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So and to be quite honest, like, no, I haven't really stopped to what he differentiates between rest and relax. Like I can't
Mm,
even say that I've been able to do either one to the extent that I know my body needs it.
Mm.
And but I'm practicing it. I'm getting better. I'm noticing, like, in the city, it's the art of doing nothing is what they call it. And today I sort of just pounced around once I was home and finished with my morning things. I laid there in bed, just got back in bed and curled up for a little bit. And then I kind of like bounced outside to eat a snack in the sun. And then I bounced on the couch to sort of just lay here and stare out the window. And like that to me is relaxation, right? I'm
Mm.
not, because what he says is that the difference is relaxation is being able to reach a state of rest within all spheres of your
Mm.
health, well-being in your life, where rest sometimes is just the physical pause that you put on your body to recover. And
Yeah.
and so I just want to share that for anyone because when we're talking about this energy and its frequency at the gift in the city, we're moving beyond just periods of inaction, right?
Mm.
And he talks about that too. Um, and so to the anger and to the no and to the boundaries. So as a manifester, and you can tell me this, and there's probably a lot of other aspects that make this so correct for me. Please do not disrupt me when I'm in the midst of doing something. Don't come in my way. I won't even start a task or start something if I'm not going to be able to like finish it right then and there in that time, in that given time that I've given myself. And so, or, if I set out to plan a day a particular way, which I did. So on Friday, I had decided that I was going to do something a little different that day. I'm supporting people, at the facility and this, and I've got a lot of different things happening in my life. So I had a plan for that day. Well, that was not what then came towards my direction. And so so sometimes like it's not anger, it's like full on frustration and annoyance because sometimes like the not self theme will show up in other ways. And for me, like it doesn't always have to be anger, but I've noticed recently that it's like annoyance and frustration as well.
Yeah. Which I would say is like a aspect of anger,
Yes.
just a different, and yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So definitely not self showing up. And my friend and I was like venting to her, telling her like why I was frustrated. And she's like, are you going to say something? The way she speaks, she's funny. Like, she's like, are you going to put some respect on your name? And I was like, well, I think I said, no, I'm just going to let it be. I'm not going to be there that long, like, blah, 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 whatever. And then, like, after we stopped talking and I sat, I was just like, all right, I'm going to change my day around to suit the needs that are like showing up right now. But I'm going to make it known that this is what's going to happen proceeding next because that's going to be most correct for me. And I'm not like saying it like arrogantly or, like aggressively or anything. I just needed to realize like, all right, how am I going to redirect this now? If I'm now choosing to like use my energy, I'm not forcing it. I've decided I'm going to do this. I have the willpower to do it.
Mm.
Then let me do it, but let me set the boundary as well of how much I'm able to give.
Yeah.
And honestly, once I did all that and I just went through with, all the next steps, by the end of the day, it was an overall good day, well done, like I used my energy correctly. But I don't think I would have like, again, I've been saying this recently about human design and using it as a tool, and it's like it really is an experiment.
Mm.
It really is. And all of these different like examples and lived experiences I've been sharing with you are like just reminding me of the ways that are like a correct use of my energy or how to
Yeah.
direct the energy when it's not coming at me the way I want it to.
Yeah, and there's so many different parts, right? Like there's and all these different parts are speaking to each other, and different things are kind of becoming magnified at different times. And it's, I think that's where it's really important to just kind of tune into like what part feels the loudest right now. Like what am I being asked to look at or experiment with, or and I feel like it's always revealed to you in the right time. And maybe this relates to the idea of effortless action. Like you don't have to go out searching for all the answers. They will come to you. You know, like what part of my chart am I wanting to learn about right now? Or what part of, like, what boundary am I needing to learn how to express? Or you know, what am I, yeah, what needs am I needing to express at the moment? And like something that's coming to mind for me is, like I was saying before, um, not giving away my power in the sense of like letting people influence the way I feel about myself or about a situation, not letting other people's opinions sway me. Speaking my truth is something that's been coming up for me. And like there was just an example the other day. I was having a phone conversation with a friend, and she said something or asked me a question that I like got kind of triggered about. And it was related to the pregnancy loss that I went through last year. And essentially she was kind of like, oh, did you ever find out like what happened or if there was a reason why? And I felt this like it was anger, but it was almost like this need to stand up for myself, but not in a defensive way, but in a like, oh, and I'm like getting angry thinking about it because I just think that this is like, there's already so much shame and like failure that women who go through something like that feel. And for someone who hasn't been through it, you just can't understand that. And so, anyway, long story short, and I'm not going to let myself get all flustered over it. I was like, look, and I just very calmly, I took a deep breath and I was like, um, it happens to 20% of women of pregnancies, and there's not always a reason, and it's not the woman's fault. And I was very like calm in kind of standing up for myself and speaking my truth. And anyway, afterwards, like after I got off the conversation, and I can see that it wasn't like this friend wasn't trying to upset me, or was it, you know, that it was coming from like a really innocent place, but it triggered something in me. And and I'm really grateful for that because it actually then allowed me to like look at my own beliefs and my own feelings of self-worth. And when I sat with that and, you know, I did a meditation, I was able to see that like for my whole life, I've felt like people have been projecting onto me that like there's something wrong with me because I'm different, or what, for whatever reasons, I've like kind of internalized this belief that there's something wrong with me or I'm not like everybody else. And, you know, that's actually like a beautiful thing, right? I'm not like that, I'm not like anyone else. And anyway, what kind of came out of it was not only this realization of like these beliefs that I've picked up that aren't my own. So there was a lot of sadness and anger there that like I've believed these things that aren't true my whole life. But also like because there was that reaction in me, and because there's that lived experience, like I get to tell that story and I get to use my voice on behalf of other women who perhaps don't have a voice, or who have, you know, don't know how to express that shame or that feeling of like failure and sadness and feeling misunderstood and feeling like other people are entitled to have opinions about you and your body. Like that is just not okay. And I can even in this moment feel like the anger coming up in me, and it's not like a shadow anger, it's a like purposeful anger. And we've talked about this a lot before about like you know, I have the gate of the fighter. I'm meant to like know what fights are worth fighting for. And I also you know, I'm deeply sensitive through my open emotional solar plexus, and I also have my defined throat and defined identity center, and like the way I express myself and my authority is through my lived experiences, through the challenges and the initiations that I go through, and then I express that out. And so I don't even know like how I got onto this, but it's just to say that like there's so many parts of us speaking, like this is our energy, this is me in my energy, right?
Mhm.
This is me like flowing with my energy. And you know, to resist that would have looked like people pleasing, would have looked like, you know, continuing that pattern that I've done in the past of just like making other people more comfortable. But I'm not willing to do that anymore. You know, I'm not willing to like quieten my voice to make other people comfortable.
Yeah. You know, I one just like honor that you like allowed yourself to be fully in your truth. And what came up for me was like the repressive nature of what he calls acquiescent. Sort of giving in to others is I don't really know how he explains it entirely. But you know, these people kind of lack firm boundaries, and I feel like lacking firm boundaries is definitely a, you know, let's call it a people pleasing tendency, right? Um, but then also what came to me is that it's called the Gate of Aloneness because it's one of the three gates of aloneness, right? Am I saying that correctly? Yeah,
Yeah.
the three gates of aloneness. And you know, you having it undefined. So the way we've talked about this before, like when it's undefined, that's where you sort of have the conditioning, but you get to learn and pull the gift out of that experience. And when it's defined, you still obviously experience all the frequencies within the gate, within the energy, but correct me if I'm wrong, like you have a little bit more of a connection to just that actually being a natural part of you. A gift is more, you know, readily, I would say, like accessible or, you know, shown.
Yeah, consistent. But there's also the nuance of the fact that I have a defined heart center, ego center, and it's my authority. And like so there's and this is where it's interesting and like all the different dynamics, because I would say that I'm like very, very familiar with that willpower and that sense of like you know, that heart centered energy, even though I don't have this gate defined, like I have the center defined. So I'm kind of like very um, aware of those energies. And there's just the different, like we were saying, because this is tribal, right? Is this a tribal?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a tribal circuit, part of the tribal circuit. You know, for me, I have the 51, which is individual. It's the only individual gate in the heart center, you know, the ego center. So for me, it's a much more individual experience when I'm accessing this like willpower. Whereas for you, perhaps it's a little bit more about the tribe and your relationship with like the community. And, you know, that aloneness is about being able to like actually serve the community by being in your own energy and like cutting off your energy and denying your energy to
Hmm.
other people at times, like knowing when to say yes and no.
Yeah. No, for
Yeah.
sure. Um, you know, I bring up the aloneness part because he talks a little bit about how, you know, in this whole energy, there is sometimes you need to be alone to rest or to be in relaxation. And, um, you know, there's this being with yourself and then being with others, being with the community and then being with yourself and the balance and the exchange there. And for me, I have found like this very much goes into how like my overall well-being and health function. If I'm not honoring these moments where I really need to spend time with myself. And I have two of the three of the gates of aloneness. So I
Mm.
feel like I have fought this for the majority of, my life of, really feeling on the outside, like really feeling not, not even like, even though it's tribal, not even feeling like one of the tribe. But he talks about how, and I believe that this is also in the human design book where, part of this energy is meant to sort of retreat, to be on its own, to, regain its life force in order to go back out and be a part of the community and the tribe. And, you know, it's for me, it's been really just taking more time to tune in, to listen, to honor, when I'm on either side of that spectrum and when I'm going off into the extreme or when to reel it back in or meet myself back in the middle. Um, so yeah, I feel like there's so much here with this gate. You're right.
There's so much. Yeah.
Mm.
I highlighted so much. Should we talk a little bit about the city? Because I think this is a really interesting city and almost, sometimes with the cities, it can feel a little bit too like out of reach
Yeah.
and too lofty. Whereas I feel like this one, of course, it's still a little hard to put into words, but I definitely felt like I could kind of understand what he was talking about a lot more with this one. And, he talks about this idea of denying God. Um, you know, and this is again where I loved the way he wrote. Like there was just so much poetry in his words. Um, Denying the existence of any separation between humanity and divinity, and mystical denial of the need for help from a god, and there's no path to God because there is no God outside of your alone. Like I don't know, I don't even know if I'm explaining it now, but when I was reading it, it made a lot more sense to me, perhaps than other cities I've read. What did you think?
It's honestly, I didn't today when I was kind of going back and going through, I didn't get to the city. Um,
Okay.
and I don't really remember it from the last time that I read it. So I don't know if I have anything really to say on it.
That's
I
okay.
don't, yeah, I don't. Mm-mm.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's not go there then, because I don't have anything more other than I just thought it was like I just loved the language that he used. Um, all right. Well, do you have anything else you want to share about this?
No, I think the more I think about it, the more we talked about it today, the last, I feel like it was very purposeful as to why life sort of just gave us more time with it,
Mm.
you know? Um, but no, I mean, I'm really excited to keep going. It's
Yeah, me too.
it's gonna be nice to read a new one.
Yeah. But I feel like I'm going to take a lot away from this one in that um, I like this idea of effortless action and aligning with the universal flow just feels like something I'm really being drawn to at the moment. So I feel like this is something that's just going to stick with me a lot. But yeah, I'm also excited to read something new.
Yeah. And the journey continues. So we'll see everyone with the 41.
All right.
All right.
See you then.